having the friendly hand of representatives worldwide. At this moment, Jorge Fernández, Ambassador of Cuba to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, is handing over his credential letters, is shaking hands with the president, the constitutional president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, as a recognition of what it means, the friendship between Caracas and Havana, in a context as well in which Cuba has been strong and determined to keep supporting the ideals of Venezuela, to keep defending the history that unites both nations by the legacy as well of Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro and Eternal Commander Hugo Chavez Frias, in a space in which also has been reinforced the continuity of the bilateral relationship between both nations in this brotherly friendship that both nations defend. And now the new diplomatic mission in the country is going to keep defending those ideals, and is going to also keep defending the legacy of strong ties that unite both nations. Now Jorge Luis Mayo is going to be the new ambassador of Cuba, of the Republic of Cuba, in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, to keep strengthening the solidarity ties between both nations, to keep also building up the future, the shared future that both nations want to have, in spite and in the face of the most brutal campaign of misinformation, against also the most brutal aggression attempts performed in the past decades by the United States. Let's recall that Cuba has been also a victim of the policy of horror, of hostilities that has been reinforced by the successive administrations of the United States in the past years and decades. There is a blockade imposed on the island for over 60 decades already that is having harshly consequences for the daily life of Cubans. And in this context, Venezuela has also been always there for Cuba, has been also always offering and handing over a friendly hand. Now, in the current context in which Venezuela has been under threat in the past few weeks by the presence of military ships from the U.S. deployed in Caribbean waters, with the attempt and the intention to create chaos and destabilize Venezuela just because of political purposes as well. And this is a circumstance that Cuba can relate to, because it also has been suffering all sorts of actions from the United States from very early on in the Cuban Revolution in 1959 and onwards, and now also has been having consequences in Venezuela, this policy of hostilities against those nations, those sovereign nations that are opposed to move on and to follow orders from the White House. And now Venezuela is being defending itself with much strength, with much unity, and also in a context in which Venezuela is not alone. And this is a reflection of that. Cuba is there for Venezuela. Cuba is sending a new diplomatic body, a new diplomatic mission to the country to revitalize the strong relationship that has been uniting Cuba and Venezuela for decades in the face of those destabilization attempts. Nothing has had the power to actually divert both nations from their path of socialism, from their path of social justice and equality, and also social initiatives for the benefit of the people, but most precisely for the benefit of those who are in a vulnerable condition. Venezuela and Cuba are leaving no one behind, and now both Venezuela and Cuba reinforce their determination to